how much of an impact, I'm sure it's probably a big impact, but how much of an impact is loss of God in terms of the mental health?
Oh
And
my gosh,
and
yes.
and why is God kind of the solution to some of our mental health crises?
Kind of the solution.
The solution,
I was
the
gonna like
solution,
let me just like
all of
yeah,
the
let me get
solution,
right
right?
back to no. I mean, yeah, for sure. Um, he is right, and but at the same time, we have to. I always think of the image of Michelangelo's painting. What is this with the finger?
Oh yeah,
Or
well, in the Sistine
the
Chapel
Sistine
ceiling, yeah,
Chapel.
the creation
Yes,
of Adam.
there we go. I always forget it. My husband is probably laughing at me now. He's like, I always tell it to you. But I think of that like here he is reaching to us, and all we have to do is ding, you know. But it's that yeah he is the answer, but we have a part to play in that. And so it's like one person, someone has to go through a journey,
Yeah.
to come to that place of go, I do need you. You are the way. And then that's one piece. But then the journey to that is so convoluted. There's especially if you have a lot of mental health issues because there are, I would say that there are definitely mental health issues that are um, more more than just thinking about healing or having to go through a journey of healing.
Like
There's
biologically
real
based.
illnesses, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, biochemical.
chemical imbalances and such that one has to surrender. I mean, there's wonderful um, bipolar Catholics out there writing books now about that to help us
Mm.
understand more their experience. And Lisa Rumpel has a great book. It's on Amazon. I can't remember the title now, but she shares her experience of living with bipolar.
I'm glad for that because I have heard some Catholics say, well, if you have mental illness, it's a sign you're not praying enough, which is not
Oh,
true.
no.
There's
Yeah. So that's,
certainly
I just
mental illness is
really
very
want to make
real.
sure we say
Yeah,
that. That's
absolutely.
really important.
And there's a definitely
Yeah.
biological component for much of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it
Yeah.
is amazing how the emotions and the soul and the soul, spirit, and the mind are very intertwined.
Yeah.
And when you're not at peace in one, you won't be at peace in the
The
other.
other.
And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I had an interesting experience this past weekend. I teach confirmation class, and
Oh, nice.
you get all kinds of kids in my confirmation class. But my Sunday morning class has the most stark difference between kids that have faith and don't have faith. And this girl
Mm.
at the beginning of class, she said, "Can I have my sister as my sponsor?" And I said, "Well, I'm sure if she's a practicing Catholic." And the girl said, "Well, she doesn't practice and she doesn't even really believe."
Oh,
I said, "Well, maybe that's not the best, example for you." And then the girl said, "Well, truth be told, I don't really believe either."
okay.
So I'm like,
Okay.
let's talk about this later because that's kind of
Yeah.
a big deal. Like you're
Yeah.
trying to get confirmed you don't
Right.
believe in this
That's
stuff.
like,
But I looked at her, and she's a girl who has struggled a lot with mental illness and with self harm. And
mm,
a couple girls over is this girl who is actually she's told me that she feels called to become a nun, and
wow.
she's actually going to go to a boarding school for girls discerning that in high school,
Wow.
which I thought was really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just a peace and a joy that radiates on her face, and I just thought this
Yes.
contrast was so stark. Here's this girl who struggled so much with mental illness, in part because I don't think she does believe that. And it's not that believing in God will take
Mm-hmm.
away
No.
all your
Yeah.
mental illness, but at
But
least
it's
it
a
gives
big
you
part. Yeah.
perhaps a framework to understand it, the grace needed to overcome it.
Yeah. The meaning of life,
Yeah, the meaning of
right?
it.
The meaning, what am I doing here? And when you put that in order, then everything else falls in place, even if there are other parts that are really difficult to reconcile because it's more of an emotional level
Yeah,
or a chemical level,
sure.
right?
Viktor
Yeah.
Frankl, I'm sure you've studied him probably quite a bit. He wrote a very famous book called Man's Search for Meaning, which was very impactful for me in college. And talked about he was a German Jewish psychologist who went to Auschwitz and thankfully was released. And he wrote this book talking about his theory of psychology, which he called logotherapy,
Hmm.
which is basically like it's it's based on let's find a meaning to your suffering. Let's find a meaning to your life.
Yes.
And he says once you find that meaning and a purpose, then you can have the strength to endure anything. And that's I think what God gives us because
Yeah.
that's a deep desire of our human heart to know that our life's not meaningless.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's so beautiful when a soul comes to that place.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we'll pray for that student of yours.